And joining us now, she's the head coach at Arizona State, fresh off, of course, a season last season where they went 33-16, was a national seed. I speak of Trisha Ford joining us back here on In the Circle. Coach, how you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. Thanks so much for having me on. I'm excited.
Well, let's kind of reflect back on last year. You had a heck of a year. You got to be a national seed. You got to host a regional, went 33 games, were in the mix. Some injuries kind of caught up with you in the regionals. Is that one of those where it's like a what-if type of season? When you reflect back on 2021, what do you think?
Yeah, I think first off, I was just super pleased with, how we went through conference season. I mean, taking series from, Washington and Oregon and obviously Arizona, that was huge for us. And so, was really pleased with kind of our progression and where we are and our development in the mound. Lindsay Lopez and Allison Royalty were a dynamic, 1-2 punch. And really, it was kind of crazy how the season ended after we kind of heard our seeding. That following couple of days was some tough doctor news. And so, yeah, we got hit by the injury bug. We had, three of our main, players out or, not at their best, I would say, which, not everybody's at their best at the end of the year. It's the end of the year, but we had some significant issues. And, I was, as much as it hurt to have our season ended, I was pleased with us earning that national seed and us giving everything we had, and leaving it on the field. And Virginia Tech, man, that Rochard kid, she pitched a gem and we got to see her obviously against UCLA as well. But, they've done a great job.
Yeah, that was the thing. You were kind of in a tough battle from a health standpoint, and you had a stacked regional with BYU and their talent and Virginia Tech. So what do you hope that the returners take from that experience into 2022?
Well, I think, being able to host, even though last year was kind of a different season and you didn't have fans the whole time, we were fortunate that we had fans for most of our season, in a limited capacity, but to be able to host for postseason, and what an honor, and how electric, Farrington gets, and how hard you have to work and what you have to do, both in pre-conference and conference play in order to be able to host. So I think for me, those are kind of the big things that I want them to take, is kind of that progress and that, the process of what it means to host. We were young. We had both, two freshmen on the mound, and obviously they're back again this year. And excited about that. And for the most part, we had, I kind of laughed, like we had some really old and we had some really young. And so, those really young, they were able to get, just get some time, get some playing time, be able to go to conference through conference play for the first time. And so they're kind of battle tested now. And so for me, I'm excited to see, what that looks like moving forward, into this season.
How has the fall gone? And obviously you got some new faces. You lost some great personnel, but you do have some returners back. Kind of how has the fall gone?
Yeah, the fall's been fun, honestly. It's been, fall has its ups and downs. And obviously there's things that I think we need to work on still, and things, holes. And, every coach kind of feels that way. But I've really enjoyed coaching this group, to be honest. It's been a breath of fresh air. I think we've got a good mix of talent that I'm excited. Again, I kind of, it's weird. We were talking about this in the office the other day. Like, I still feel pretty young, and I think it's because of the circle. Like, we have, two sophomores. Marissa Schold is, back with us now this year, and she's technically a sophomore. She still has this year and a couple more years. And so she hasn't pitched in a while. And then we have Mac Morgan, who's a freshman. And so, in that circle area, we're pretty young or new, I would say. And so I think, I'm interested to see, we'll have Royalty will be healthy, which she wasn't healthy for most of the year last year. And so I think, there's just a good combination of, being able to have four arms, and they all bring different, things to the table that I'm excited about. And we have Jazz Hill and Alina Torres, who have been, mainstays in our lineup, the last 2 years. And Now they're juniors, COVID sophomores. I don't even know how to even, what they're called, but we have those two kids, and then we have McKenna Harper and Yanni Acuna in the outfield as well, with Emily Casares, right there in the mix. And so, we just kind of, I think we still have a mixture of some, veterans, and then we have still, youth. And for me, that's your perfect combo as you're thinking about building a program that is consistently in contention and going to super regionals and going to the World Series. You need to have the little bit of new and a little bit of old, because how are the young going to, know what it's like and how to do things if they don't have people to look up to and kind of follow in their footsteps. And so, that part, it kind of excites me. We lost a lot of offensive power. So I think that'll look different for us this year. Allie Tatnall, Maddie Hackbarth, Kendra Hackbarth. I mean, good Lord. I mean, you're talking about a lot of juice. And so what we're going to need to do is just, get a little bit more out of each kid, and hopefully with some of our pieces that we've added, kind of, figure out a way to make up for those 50 home runs.
Yeah, it's a lot of homers.
But, I'm excited. Yeah, it is. Right, to be honest with you. And I'm excited to kind of see, we have a tough schedule. We open up, we have Duke and Oklahoma State. We have Minnesota coming to us. So we've got a full slate preseason, and Coach K, he kind of put our schedule together, and I'm excited. We go to, University of Texas for a tournament. And so I think we got a little mix, and we're going to get, we're going to be battle tested before conference play starts, which is really the goal of, our preseason is to be battle tested, because conference, is going to be brutal, and conference play gets you ready for postseason. And so for me, I want, and so you don't come to the Pac-12 if you want to be, if you want to take the easy route. So we're pretty excited. I'm excited.
You mentioned your pitching staff. It's so young. Do you feel you're ahead of schedule with your pitching staff, considering how young it is, and yet like Lopez and Royalty, what they've accomplished already? I feel like you're almost ahead of schedule. Accurate?
Yeah, I don't know that I ever say I'm ahead of schedule. I just think that they've done a really good job of kind of buying in, and I don't know, just, trusting kind of, our process and kind of what we do. And we have a very open dialogue, I think, in the bullpen, which I appreciate. We sit down and kind of work in 4-week blocks, and we talk about what our goals are. And I think that once you've kind of seen that level of success, you buy in more and more. And Lindsay Lopez is somebody that really comes to mind, because her freshman year, which was her in the bullpen throwing fastballs, and her and I laugh about this now. And, I said, I told her, I'm like, your Rapsodo dot for all your pitches was like middle, like, there was no vertical separation. And now you're starting to see, 6 to 8 inches of vertical separation in her pitches. And, for me, obviously with the changeup, like, that's like, wow, and my thing is it's, we give them tools, and it's going to be those athletes that kind of take those tools and adapt it to what fits for them. Everybody's not the same. Our pitchers are not the same, our hitters are not the same, but I think they've done a really good job of diving into pitching and understanding what that looks like and how their body moves, and being able to manipulate the ball to be so effective early.
You mentioned all the personnel you lost offensively. Who are some of the new faces you're excited about on the offensive end? You mentioned the new faces on the pitching staff, but what about offensively? Who are some new faces you think can contribute this year?
Yeah, I mean, goodness. I think, Christiana Watson was part of our team last year, but she redshirted. She's Laura Espinosa's daughter, so she's got some good gene pool there. And yeah, exactly. And Laura and I joke that Watts that's what we call her. She's got more juice than Laura, which says a lot. So I'm going to see her get a season. Yeah, I know, right? Full season under her belt, see what that looks like. We have a kid named Sydney Sanders, who's a freshman, a true freshman. and somebody that has, crazy juice. Coach Harger, he's like, I love working with that kid. And I'm like, I know. So I'm pretty excited about those two. Jessie Puck, who, transferred, she's a fifth year for us. It's just somebody that I think has played at a high level her whole life, comes to us from Ole Miss. So obviously has played and faced really good pitching, has one of the best demeanors I've ever coached. Very easygoing, super, I guess level-headed. And as a catcher, that's something that I think is so key, is to be level-headed, be able to communicate with your pitchers, know when they need a little push and know when they need a little love. And so I think, I'm pretty excited to see, what that looks like. And then last but not least, we got Jasmine Rollin. I mean, you talk about juice, that kid, played at Missouri and again has played at a very high level. I don't know if I've seen balls come off of bats the way they come off her, hers. I mean, she mashes. And so, in our ballpark, I think she's going to be very successful. And Jazz, her biggest thing is coming off an injury. So she hadn't seen live pitching in quite some time, and get some work and, just reps, and she's super hard on herself. And that's been a lot of our conversation, of being able to kind of process and be okay with where she's at, but continuing to work hard. I always say, hitting cannot be emotional. And I would be, I told her, I think you're too emotional. There's too many emotions when you're going through your process. And I think she's done a tremendous job, honestly, of getting better with that. And by the end of fall, I mean, she was putting balls, into the beach volleyball court that they're building behind our stadium. So I'm pretty excited to see, that mix.
Do you have leaders set up right now? Is that still evolving? Obviously, when people think of a Maddie Hackbarth, they think about the numbers, but I remember you talked a lot about her leadership and things like that she brought to the table. Do you have leaders established, or is that still evolving?
Yeah, I mean, I think we kind of let things naturally happen. And, at the end of the year meetings, we were talking to each player about this. And I thought JR, it was Jasmine Rollin, we call her JR. She kind of brought up something that I was really pleased with. She just said, like, we have leaders for different kind of categories, like on the field, this is our leader, in the classroom, this is our person, when it comes to like, team miscellaneous things, like this is our person. And so for me, that's been a really, positive shift, that we kind of have different people stepping up in different areas, and taking on those leadership roles, because I think really in the grand scheme of things, like we all should be leaders, and we should all have pride, and there should be kind of a standard. And that's one of our core values, is our standard is our standard. And it's kind of our North Star. And so, there's a right way and there's a wrong way. And I think that we've done a really good job of, over the years, kind of establishing that. And, for me, it was really cool to hear somebody who just joined our program, this fall, for her to say that. Cause I was like, man, we're moving in a really good direction.
Since you've been there, there's always been a player that takes that next step from the following year from the returner. Especially since Jeff Harger's been running the offense in particular, there's always been a player. Who's that player you're intrigued to see if they could take that next level of the returners?
Yeah, Yanni Acuna, somebody that I think, with consistent at bats. I mean, she's had a solid years, but not, I think she's primed. I think Christiana Watson, I'm telling you, like that kid, she's got a great approach. She's got a very calm demeanor. She doesn't get too up. She doesn't get too down. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing, and she's just like, when you're somebody that's been a coach's kid, and obviously Laura has coached her whole life. And obviously Laura played at a really high level. When you're somebody that is constantly getting that feedback, and just those conversations that, we just don't really, we take for granted. She's got it her whole life. She's had it her whole life. She's been around softball at a very high level her whole entire life. And so I think those pieces are starting to come together for her. And so I'm excited. I'm excited for pitchers to have to face her and try to figure out how to get her out.
We're speaking with Arizona State head coach Trisha Ford here on In the Circle. What's it like to be the vet now in the state of Arizona among Pac-12 head coaches. Odd to say, odd to hear, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, God, Coach Candrea. I mean, what an iconic person, both on and off the field. I have so much respect for him, and I continue to keep in touch with him. I think he's going to help our game tremendously. He's got a great passion, and obviously Arizona's in great hands, and we have GCU that has a new coach as well in the state, and so yeah, I mean. I'm the young buck, but now the veteran young puck, so, on the field, obviously us and, in Arizona will battle. I mean, that's what you do on and off the field. And, but off the field, we're trying to make Arizona softball better. I mean, that's really the thing here. And, Caitlin and I have a really good relationship, and, we always laugh. Like, on the field, we want to kick each other's butt, but off the field, like, how can we help each other, and how can, help the state of Arizona? So, yeah, it'll be interesting. It'll be weird playing Arizona, if I'm being honest with you, and not seeing Coach Candrea. My 9 years with John Rittman as his assistant at Stanford, and obviously they coached USA softball, together. So they had a really close relationship. It's going to be different to, walk into that stadium this year and not see Coach Candrea.
Yeah, I mean, he might be in the dugout. He might be yelling now from the dugout too. I mean, I have a feeling he'll be around, but it is unique though. I mean, and talk about that. The state of Arizona softball, when you walked in, what was it like? And what was the biggest thing you learned once you came to Tempe, obviously at Arizona State, that you didn't know going in?
Well, I mean, the talent pool is huge. I mean, if you look at kind of the 2023s that obviously nobody can comment on, but that where they're going, and kind of the level that they've played at. I mean, I think that's been a tremendous, push for us, is trying to keep some of these Arizona kids home. I think, Arizona is kind of, it's full of people that have transplanted here. And so, I think that the draw to stay in the state of Arizona hasn't been as high as I would have liked it. And so I think we've really worked hard to try to sell, being able to play in front of your parents, and high level softball, and being able to kind of have the best of both worlds. So I think, that's been my biggest surprise, is A, the talent level, but B, because of the transplant, how easy they are to leave the state, because there's not really like that tie. And so I think for me, it's just getting back into the community. I have a 14-year-old who's playing softball. And so, I'm really getting a taste of kind of this process, and why kids are the way they are, because I'm living it.
Yeah, that's true. Speaking of the bond that you as head coaches all have in the Pac-12 as a staffs, because I mean every league and the coaches are very close in every league they're in, but there's something about the Pac-12 and the bond. Like, you and Laura Berg go way back. You both were on the under-17 U.S. gold medal winning team, which I covered in person in Clearwater when you won against Japan in the gold. I mean, what is it about the bond in the Pac-12 among coaches? Because I sense that every time I talk to Pac-12 coaches, they talk about each other and doing well, and they also being involved in the game from an international standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, I just think there's like such a high level of respect for each other. I think we do things the right way. Bergie and I go back, quite a few years, and being able to spend time with them in the USA program, I think is tremendous, because you're kind of out of your roles as a softball college coach, and you're in a role of like representing your country. And it's such a bigger, it's just a bigger feeling, right? A bigger commitment to kind of the game. And so I've been fortunate to be able to be around, Kirk Walker from UCLA. I mean, Kelly and I, when I, need some mom advice, or I need, we just have the ability to kind of put aside where we are, and talk to each other as people. Jess Allister and I coached together at Stanford. I coached her one year when she was at Stanford as a player. I think we just have some very unique, bonds. When Missy was at Oklahoma, her and I exchanged, scouting reports, weekly, and just, our bond grew, over the years. And I think it just comes from that mutual respect of, I think we have very high level coaches in our league that have, been here for a while. Kelly's been at UCLA for a while. I mean, Jessica, her Stanford ties, Chelsea's, Cal ties, Amy's Utah. I mean, we could go on and on and on. And I think, I think over the years, your character is what is left. And I think we have we have high character people in head coaching positions. And I know as a person, I just respect that. And, for me, it's about learning. Like I could always learn from somebody. So, my ego isn't too big to, pick up the phone and say, hey, I have this situation. Like, what do you think? And, how would you deal with it? And I think we have built up that trust over the years.
I was curious this offseason among you all coaches in the Pac-12, what was the big topic? Was it the World Series schedule changing, which you've been there? They've adapted the schedule a little bit. Instant replay, has that been a hot topic? I know Coach Perez has constantly been pushing for that. What's been the hot topic among the coaches in the Pac-12? Was it the fact of the seeding purposes? Because I know some Pac-12 coaches were upset with the seedings last year. What was the big topic this offseason among the Pac-12?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's been a lot of things. We have some things up our sleeves, I think, that we're going to be excited about, but it was really about how to position the Pac-12 in a better spot, from a student athlete experience, from a postseason experience. Obviously the World Series, the formatting change, I think that's huge. I think, the instant replay, we've talked about that. I think what we do a really good job is we meet or we talk probably close to once a month as a unit. And I think that, communication, we've all talked about this, communication is key in relationships to succeeding. And so I think for us, it's just really the conversation of how to position the Pac-12 in a way, in a light that everybody can see what a great product it is on and off the field. And I think from an academic standpoint, from an athletic standpoint, we really are the best show in town. And so I think, from top to bottom, and I think, sometimes, being where we are time zone wise, it becomes tough to see us. And so I think for us, it's really about getting out there and how we can do some things from a social media standpoint, from a scheduling standpoint, and obviously from student athlete experience perspective, to kind of showcase who we are and what we do.
You mentioned obviously your schedule, very challenging. Oklahoma State at home, Duke at home, Minnesota will come to your place at home. You're familiar with some of the staff members there. You go to Texas, you're trying to win the state of Texas. I feel like you're at Texas. You play Texas State in that tournament. You play A&M at Judy Garman. You host me. Just talking about it. You mentioned Coach Kalidas involved in that schedule. He's either very smart or you're going to yell at him. But your team's going to be challenged.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't think you come here to play a soft schedule. We sometimes get, penalized or, talked about, because we play so many home games, but when it's 75, 80 degrees in February and March with no rain, I mean, why are we going on the road, and we're able to match up against some really good competition. And so I think for me, it's balancing, yes, we're staying at home, but we're playing some really tough, teams and great programs. And when we go on the road, when we go to Texas, when we go to Fullerton, we're playing, a tough schedule. And I think for me, that's how you're going to know what your insides are. And I always talk about, like, I recruit insides. If you've got good insides, you can succeed in our program. And so for me, I want to know kind of what their DNA, what is our team's DNA going to be? Well, you find out when you're in the battles, right? Mm-hmm. You find out when you're on the field, when you're down by, 7 and you're going into the 5th inning, like, how are you going to figure this out? And then you got to come back and play another game, the very next game against another top 25 team. It's not just a one and done. And so I think for me, those opportunities are exciting. I'm wired a little bit different. I don't really stress about it, but it's like, how are we going to get this done? And let's see, let's give so-and-so an opportunity and let's see what they do with it. And then having those conversations, because you're going to have the ebb and flow of season. And so you're going to have some ups, and you're going to have some down, but really teaching your players how to deal with ups and downs in life, not only on the field, but off the field, I think is just a huge component of what we do and why we do it. And so for me, it's really important. I think some of your, people always say this, but it's true. Like your greatest growth happens in failure, right? And it's really not failure. It's just not succeeding to the level that you had expected, but, I always say, you either do or you don't. Don't give me this crap that you're trying. Like trying's for the birds. Like you either do or you don't. Now you might not get the outcome, right? And you adjust and you manipulate and you kind of go through the process maybe a little different when you're faced with that same situation, but don't tell me you're trying. And I think that's our, one of our big things is, go in there, like, let's go in, let's go in for the punch and see how this all ends up.
I'm curious your opinion because I've talked to so many coaches on the West Coast that said they really appreciate the tournaments, having these pre-conference tournaments that was taken away last season. And they felt that, wow, we didn't realize how important these tournaments were, not just from a resume standpoint, but just getting my team ready to play until we didn't have that option. Do you feel that same way? Having back Kachikawa, having these tournaments, be able to host teams from all over the country like you weren't able to do last year.
Yeah, I mean, I think, yes. I mean, I think these preseason tournaments are huge. We were fortunate we were able to host quite a bit last year, but from a regional standpoint. So we weren't able to get teams from out of region. And for me, I think that's really important, especially as you go into postseason and you're thinking about, just matchup, like who's beat who and when they beat them. And, I think it gives you an opportunity to get a little taste of when you go to postseason, you're going to get people from kind of all parts of the country. And I think softball, our game is, just grown tremendously. I mean, you look at the World Series, now compared to what it was even 5-6 years ago. I mean, it's, quadrupled in size. And so I think for me, it's important for us to be able to see, programs from all different regions and be able to kind of get us ready for that next step.
I know we spoke a year ago. You were excited to bring in Jimmy Kaulitis to your staff and the impact he would have. And of course, Jeff Harger is one of the best offensive hitting coaches in the sport. It's a good problem to have when your assistant's always rumored for a coaching job every time a job opens. That means you got good coaches. That people are not right. What has that been like having Jimmy now a year in, and then of course the job Jeff continues to do with the offense?
Yeah, I mean, I think Jimmy has just done a tremendous job. I mean, the amount of relationships and contacts Coach K has, across the country, I think, you don't really understand it until you're in the office with him every single day. I mean, that man is working, sun up to sundown, on the phone, just, trying to get us the best players we can get here at Arizona State. And he just continues to kind of court those relationships. And so for me, I've learned a lot from him. I've learned kind of what it takes to to be known as one of the best recruiters in our game. And I understand kind of what it looks like now, and Jeff on the same is kind of in that same, boat. I mean, I think, every year I talk to, other head coaches across the country and they're like, any chance Jeff, is Jeff happy? And I'm like, yes, he's happy, yeah. I think, Jeff kind of comes from an unconventional background. And I think you see this more and more. He's not somebody that was already in the college game and then, continued up the ranks. For me, I actually enjoy the route that he came. He was a dad and he did travel ball and he just wanted to learn and be the best. And that is what has evolved over the years of just, he is constantly learning. He's on the phone a lot with, hitting guys from the MLB, hitting guys that are in the private sector, just trying to get better. And, what do you think about this? And, he just has a very inquisitive mind. But I think the thing that Jeff does that I think is really hard is he's able to understand things from an analytical standpoint, because that's really a lot of where our game is going. But you can have all the analytics that you have and that you could possibly get, and you can have all these numbers. But if you can't coach, it doesn't mean anything. And I think he does a really good job of kind of dissipating to the team or to the players what information each kid needs. And there's some kids that need a lot and some kids that's not a good fit. And so I think he does a really good job of kind of balancing, what they need and what they don't need. But what they don't know is kind of endless hours he spends, because each time we practice, we get their numbers from a hitting perspective through all of our systems, and then he designs practices based upon how those numbers are trending. And so players and everybody just thinks you throw a practice plan together, and really it's not that simple. I mean, we really sit down and look at how we're trending, what drills are working. We section our girls up into different, this kid's her slides her hip a little bit, her path's a little bit bad, or those types of things, and then we customize their work or their work for the day. And I think when you start to think of practice planning in that perspective, you can start to understand and really admire kind of that work. And I think it shows up every year he's been here. You look at our offensive numbers and they've been off the chart. I mean, we've been in the top 5 offensive team every year he's been here, and so it doesn't just happen. It's a lot of work.
It does, a lot of work. And I know there's a lot of work ahead for this team moving forward. What's going to be my last question? What is the key for this team to accomplish your eternal goals is what?
I think the biggest key is in the circle. I mean, I think, in our sport, it begins and ends there. And so if we can minimize mistakes and kind of learn from last year and get Mac going quicker, and quickly and get us going on the right track, I think we're going to be poised to make a really, I think we're going to be a fun team to watch this year. Mark my words. So I think we're going to be poised, ready to go.
Well, we're excited to see you get back on the field here and starting in February, Coach. But in the meantime, thanks so much for taking the time from your busy schedule. We're looking forward to seeing your team and your staff, obviously, in 2022. Thanks for coming on, and we'll definitely get you back on down the road.
All right. Sounds great. And thanks again, honestly, for everything that you do for our sport. And without people like you, we wouldn't be growing the rate that we're growing. So it's important to us. So just wanted to say thank you.